Good everyone, I hope you guys have an amazing day. So in the last episode, if you remember, I spoke about how to allocate the data for the carbon credit. So today what I'm going to do, I'll show you how you can actually allocate the carbon credit, right? It's just pretty simple. It's a tiny step which you need to follow, and based on that, you're good to go. So the first thing first, right? Let me close all this stuff. Um, what I'll do, I'll show you how to do that. I've already done that, but I'll just, give you an example how you can do it. So you go to this tic-tac-toe icon, and you can do allocate carbon credits, right? You do here, um, and I will come to this carbon credit allocation. So if I do here, I will do, so I'll do new, and you can see that you can put whatever name you want, and you can see that it's expecting something called annual emission inventory, right? So you need to put that information. Now to put that, you need to have a record in this specific object. So you cancel it, go back again, so you say excuse me, annual here, annual emission inventories. So you go to new and you fill all the information. You fill the name, the year you want to capture the information, and the scope emission, right? So you can put an override in scope one, scope two, scope three, because scope one, where you actually measuring, say, amount of, say, carbon dioxide that your company's produced. So what I'll do, right? I can put like 1,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide. So I can put the 1,000 here, and you can put for other information, but just for excuse me, just to keep the information very simple, I'm just gonna use this one, right? And I will cover this topic later, but I just to show you how you can allocate carbon credit. So I'll close this. Okay, so I've already created one, which is called my account emission. So I will have, say, 1,000. So this one, um, I put the value 1,000 here. Yeah. Not 1,000. Sorry, my bad. Should have spelled correctly. 2023. So I put the final emission as 1,000. Okay. So that's great. And then once I have this record ready, I can go and create this information for me under carbon allocate, um, carbon carbon credit allocation, and then you can click on new, and then give a meaningful name and select whatever annual emission inventory you created, and then click on save. And once you do that, you will get something like this, right? So um, now that's methane. Which one is it? Is that okay? Yeah, this one. Right. So when you come here, right? So you get something like this, right? You can say, hey, I have total emissions 1,000 and total carbon credit allocated 0. Obviously, I haven't allocated any carbon credit yet, right? So, and it's pointless, right? Because if you don't have carbon credit, then it's pointless to have this record, because then you are actually not investing in a carbon project, right? So you need to have some credits, obviously, right? And then you can see this, all things will be automatically calculated. Now, what do you have to do? You need to allocate carbon credit. So that's the whole process, right? The whole process of creating this record. Now, how to allocate a carbon credit, which is very simple. Now, before you do that, just go to the related list, right? And you can see that you have carbon credit allocation item, so which is the scope. This is the scope stationary asset. This is methane gas. So once you do that, it just links it automatically. Um, so once you create this record, right? So all you have to do is just come here and do this allocate. Don't worry about this for now. Just go to scope here, and right, and then what um, I'll do next, and I can pick it up, say solar farm. Do next, and I'll do finish. Allocate. Okay, so once I refresh it, um, that's pretty weird. Oh yeah, it says it's allocated, which is good here. Carbon credit distribution, which is great. Now for just weird. Um, right, let me do one more time, which is pretty weird. Uh, I'll choose all of it, right? No carbon credits allocate, which is interesting, right? So there's nothing left to allocate. Just fine. So if I change this to say this one, save it. Okay. All right. Right. Okay. Right. So what happened was that for some reason it didn't get refreshed. Now it's correct. As you can see, that is 1,000 credit. I mean, I don't know. I found a glitch in this one. Right. I tried that before. It did the same to me. Maybe it's a trial org. I don't know. But it should show you the carbon credit allocated. Because as I'm trying to do that, there's nothing to allocate. Right. So I wanted to allocate, the 100 carbon credits. So you can see that it's allocated 100 for you. So that's now because this is what that's exactly what I wanted to demonstrate how you can allocate, carbon credit. So I hope that's clear. If it's a bit confusing, just give me a shout, right? And I can try to explain it in a different way because I don't know how to explain this in a very simple way because it looks simple, right? I understand that, but try to read about carbon credits from a different source, not just from a Salesforce. Um, if you wanted to read more about um, I do write blog, right? I just show you. Let me show you my blog, right? Climate change stories. I need a better URL. The domain name. I understand that. I'm gonna buy it. So just for now. So I've been writing different blog about the climate change, right? I talked about Philippines recently, how good their government is, taking initiative to combat climate change. Then I spoke about Indonesia, Vietnam, also spoke about uh, Indonesia. I actually wanted to cover Asia first, then we can look into Europe and United States. Um, so I didn't. I talked about China as one. You'll be surprised to see, right? Because people have very misconception that China is the biggest polluter. I mean, one thing I often tell people to understand: look at your country energy need and compare with China. China has 1.5 or 1. I don't know what's the population in China. India is pretty much the same. I exactly don't know the numbers in India and China, the population. Let's assume the combined population is 3 billion. And if you compare that with New Zealand, right, it's 5 million, right? Our energy needs is very, very low compared to the people from, let's say, China, right? And let's take an example of Sweden or Denmark or Finland or Iceland. Iceland is a tiny country, right? It's just in Europe. I mean, it's a little bit farther, it sits at a corner near that mountains away from everywhere. So if you compare Iceland and New Zealand, you can measure that because our population may be quite similar, maybe not, but you can measure it, close enough scale, right? But you can't measure Iceland with China or New Zealand with China, or for that matter, Australia with China, right? So I mean, it's kind of unfair for people to say, "Hey, China is not doing enough." China, if you ask me, China invests heavily on the natural resource, right? Um, it is not that it's not doing anything. It just wanted to make its city greener, cleaner. They have the biggest sale of electric vehicles happens in China, right? So I really appreciate what the government is doing. From an outside perspective, right? Sitting in, our news channels don't show much about China, unfortunately. So I have to dig deep. into their the country policies. I'm pretty impressed, right? They're doing pretty amazing stuff. So, where you need to credit someone, you should credit, right? Because then it's not a fair game if you're only blaming somebody but you're not really appreciating the good stuff they're doing, right? So I like to have a balanced perspective, right? Not to create an entropy instead of an equilibrium, right? If that makes sense. All right. So then I spoke about how to calculate the carbon footprint. If you're interested or not, it's a pretty good equation. I spoke about New Zealand stuff, which is my country, so I spoke about it. Um, then I spoke about India, Indian leader Modi government, right? So he has done a pretty amazing job in terms of solar panels, right? So I really appreciate the step the Indian government is doing. It's really good to see, right? I mean, I remember I heard his talk maybe 10 years ago where he was talking about, how you can make, lots of electric solar panels to consume, to look towards the renewable source of energy, right? Rather than relying totally on fossil fuels. So that's a pretty visionary approach, right? And you have to appreciate the fact, big countries require big change, right? And as a leader, I think he's pretty doing amazing work. Okay, so moving on, and then I spoke about, um, sorry, that's John again. um, for some reason, what's wrong? Oh, I think it's all right. Yeah. Um, I spoke about, what exactly climate change. I mean, I would highly encourage you to read this article because you will understand why you're actually worrying about net zero. Because, I do appreciate the fact that it is a cloud, it's a technology solution, but from a business perspective, right? If you're a consultant, if you wanted to explain to a customer, you should understand the language which they are trying to speak, right? If they are concerned about the carbon emission, if they're concerned about the scope 3 emission, you should not be talking just from a tech perspective. You should be talking from their concern perspective. Okay, we understand that you have an issue with the scope 3, how the carbon credit can help, what projects they can invest. So to reach to that level of conversation, right, you need to have a foundation to understand why we've been talking about the climate change in the first place, right? If that makes sense. So read about it, which is pretty simple, right? My climate change diaries.blogspot.com. And yeah, and read about other resources. I'm working on a book on climate change at the moment, and 2024, I'll be planning to create a book on carbon tax. Now, it is a controversial topic. I do appreciate that. I understand that you might have concern, but my role is not to impose a government to implement any policy. I'm just want to put a balanced opinion, a positive as well as negative aspect of it, right? So that whoever wants to do. That's one of the reasons why. My wife, she's from Europe, right? So we are visiting this year. So when I visit Europe, I will see if I get an opportunity to talk to ministers from the European Union, at least from Germany. I can talk because my wife is German, and we'll see how it goes. So Salesforce is pretty amazing. Net zero, everyone can understand the technology perspective, but you need to connect with the deeper problem, right? The problem the government trying to solve. So that's where the net zero can act as one solution, right? So you need to present from that level uh, if you're going to do a demo or wanted to do a proof of concept, right? Okay, that's cool. So sorry I ranted enough. And there was a few questions around a few of my YouTubers. They asked me, "Hey, I've been struggling to find a net zero app." So what that means is um, you go here and you try to do net zero, and they said they were not able to find it. Okay, so the reason being, first, you need to have a license. Okay, I presume that's taken care. And now, depending upon the security model you place, sometimes, like the place where I work, right, we don't follow profile security model, we follow permission set. Okay, so let's assume you're following a profile uh, security model, right? So go to the profile. Let's go to the user. And let's say I'm gonna go my user, right? My name. So I go to my user, right? So here under sysadmin or whatever profile, just go to assign apps and and there, just see if it is ticked, right? That's that's all you need to do if it's visible or not, right? And if that is visible, then have a look at net zero here, right? Net zero settings. If this is turned on, so yeah, a few things, troubleshooting steps you can do. I appreciate the fact that people reaching out to me for assistance. That's great. You're most welcome to ask me any questions. So if this helps, that's pretty cool, right? So that's all I wanted to cover in this episode. I hope you guys have an amazing holiday, and yeah, take care. Adios.